Hey guys, Dr. Bodle here. Now, have you tried going gluten-free before, but didn't notice many improvements in how you felt? Well, if you've watched any of my stuff in the past, you know how important I think it is to go gluten-free when it comes to helping improve your Hashimoto symptoms. However, for some people, the reason they're not seeing improvements is because they're continually being exposed to gluten in ways that are hidden to them or ways that they're just not aware of. So in today's video, we're going to give you some more information on gluten, help you to identify some of those hidden sources. That way you can be more efficient, more effective, and have better outcomes. Once again, my name is Dr. Bodle. I've been in practice for over 8 years, and during that time, I've helped thousands of patients naturally improve their Hashimoto's and hypothyroid symptoms, especially when their doctors tell them that their labs are normal, or when they're provided medication and it doesn't help to resolve all their symptoms. So if you're enjoying the content, please remember to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for new videos every Thursday. But I hope that you hang with me throughout the video today because I think you're going to find a lot of information that's really useful and is going to help you on your health journey. Now, as I love to do, let's start out with some definitions and background info, specifically defining what gluten is. Because if we don't know what it is, then how can we look for it in the food that we're eating? So gluten is a generalized term for a complex mixture of hundreds of related but distinct proteins, most of which are variations of gliadin or glutenin. Also, full transparency, I'm not really sure if it's pronounced glutenin or glutenin. I've always said glutenin, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But this family of proteins is the main storage protein in wheat grains, including wheat, barley, and rye. And although oats are naturally gluten-free, they also contain some storage proteins which tend to be related. Gluten is very heat stable and is therefore used as a binding agent in many processed foods to help with the texture, moisture retention, and also the flavor. So although most of us think of gluten as contributing to the fluffy, stretchy aspects of bread and all of these similarly related products, meaning most of us can identify some of those more obvious foods that contain gluten, things again like bread, rolls, buns, bagels, flour tortillas, pasta, cereals, crackers, pastries, donuts, muffins, cookies, and cakes. You know, as I've said before, most people's most favorite foods. But because gluten is so often used in food processing, oftentimes we're eating it and we're not even aware of it. And because gliadin in particular contains some peptide sequences that are highly resistant to gastric, pancreatic, and intestinal digestion, when we have an autoimmune condition and our body is presented with these proteins that are a challenge for us to break down, they can perpetuate continued immune dysregulation, generalized inflammation, and gastrointestinal dysfunction. But I do want to be clear about something today before we get into more of the details about those hidden and tricky sources of gluten. And that is, this video is not to scare you. It's just to inform you. Something that I run into a lot is patients who are scared of just about anything that they're eating. And sometimes I worry about making some of these videos because I don't want to add to that fear. It makes it really hard for us to navigate our day-to-day lives. Now it's true. Some people are really sensitive to what they put in their body. But it's also possible that we can become so obsessed and so worried about any potential small exposure to gluten that the stress that goes along with that can actually be worse for our health than sometimes eating gluten itself. So think of this video and this information kind of like how you would prepare to go for a walk on a rainy day. When it's rainy out, are you more likely to slip and fall? Yes, and you know that information going into the walk. But that shouldn't discourage you from going out and taking the necessary precautions. When it comes to gluten and nutrition as a whole, we need to be aware of the potential risks, but that shouldn't prevent us from engaging in our life in a way that is meaningful to us. So if we can know how to better navigate those stormy days, knowing that they're going to come, we can not only enjoy being outside, but we can also get through it unscathed. So how can we be on the lookout for hidden sources of gluten in a reasonable and effective way? First, it's important for us to understand that in 2004, here in the United States, the FDA identified 8 food allergens that must be listed on nutrition labels. These included milk, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, and soy. So if you look at a nutrition label, you'll see all of the ingredients listed out, but if one of these 8 allergens is also part of the ingredient list, then you'll see a separate list where it says contains and then the included allergens. So if you're looking to avoid gluten and you know that gluten is the main protein in wheat, then any product that says contains wheat makes it pretty easy for you and you know that you need to avoid that product. However, it's not always that easy, and not all products are clearly labeled, or they're labeled in a way that isn't clear to most people. Remember what we said before. Gluten is a complex of proteins that's found in not only wheat, but also barley and rye. And those 2 ingredients are not something that's been identified as an allergen, and therefore doesn't need to be specifically listed. So just to be clear, wheat, which contains gluten, is considered to be an allergen by the FDA. And although most people are reacting to the gluten in the wheat, the gluten part of that is not the thing that's considered to be the allergen that has to be listed on nutrition labels. Of course, some products will let you know if they're gluten-free, but it's not something that's required by law. That means that if there's gluten in your food product that is coming from a non-wheat source, then it doesn't need to be specifically labeled, which then of course increases the likelihood that you could be eating this product without knowing that gluten is in it. Additionally, because of the food processing that we mentioned before, there are certain foods that some people just don't associate with gluten, and therefore they never check the label. So as always, I recommend that we do our due diligence, check out the nutrition label, while understanding that gluten can come from a number of different sources, which we're going to talk about right now. So what I like my patients to be on the lookout for is malt vinegar and malt flavoring, which is typically derived from barley and therefore includes gluten, soy sauce, flour, and roux, spelled R-O-U-X, all of which typically contain wheat and should be labeled as such, but again, can sometimes sneak their way into certain products that we might be unaware of, and therefore we end up glossing over them. I know most of us wouldn't think that soy sauce has wheat in it, and there are gluten-free brands out there, but the vast majority are not gluten-free. So for example, it's not unusual to have a patient slip up on something like a beef jerky that is marinated in soy sauce, and although the beef jerky is gluten-free, and we would think that the soy sauce is gluten-free, the product actually contains gluten because wheat is part of the soy sauce ingredients. But other areas that we need to look for soy sauce, flour, and those barley derivatives like malt vinegar and malt flavoring includes things like salad dressings, marinades and barbecue sauce, corn flakes and rice cereal. Certain cooking sprays can actually include flour, broth and stock mixtures, gravy, certain kinds of sausages and deli meats, meat substitutes, seasonings, most black and red licorices, malted milkshakes, it's the malt part that'll get you, scrambled eggs at some restaurants, and French fries. It's not unusual for scrambled eggs to have milk and pancake batter added to them to make them look more uniform and more fluffy, and many French fries are dusted in flour to make them more crispy and to improve their flavor. Now, be aware that all of those things that I just listed don't necessarily contain gluten, but they do have that possibility. For example, some salad dressings are going to contain soy sauce and therefore wheat and therefore gluten, but not every salad dressing. But that's the thing, right? While we shouldn't be scared, we should have these products on our radar and at least be aware that it's possible that they contain gluten. Also, keep an eye out for oats. I know I said at the beginning of the video that oats are naturally gluten-free, and that's true, but oftentimes oats are contaminated with wheat during processing. Since the FDA doesn't allow descriptions in the ingredient list, for example, you'll never see gluten-free oats, you'll only see oats in the ingredient list, You'll need to rely on the rest of the packaging to determine whether it's truly gluten-free or not, and if you're unsure, you'll need to contact the manufacturer. But that's a great segue to our final point, which is that any processed or packaged food increases the likelihood that gluten could be an ingredient in that food, or that that food could be contaminated with gluten during the processing, packaging, or transportation. So when it comes to effectively avoiding gluten, if you're going to consume some processed foods, that's okay. But be aware of the risks, be aware of these potential problem foods, and when in doubt, make sure you're reading the label and contacting the manufacturer if necessary. But in general though, the best way to ensure that you're avoiding gluten is to choose foods that are naturally gluten-free and preparing most of your meals at home. That puts you in control of your nutrition and can give you certainty with your choices. If you're gonna do gluten-free, you might as well do it right. And although it can be a huge tool for helping with our Hashimoto's, it's not the only one. That means that it's imperative that we do it in a way that gives us good feedback and lets us know what's working and what isn't. Because most likely, there's going to be other things that we need to tweak and adjust as well. That way we can encourage all of your symptoms to improve and make sure that you have the best health overall. Then, when you're feeling your best and maybe you are out and about and you have something that doesn't agree with you, you'll be able to notice that change in function and more easily track back and look at what you ate and identify the contributing factor. But let me know in the comments if going gluten-free has been something that's been helpful for your health, and if you've had any challenges or difficulties with it, feel free to share those as well. If you like the video but know that you need more help and are looking for a fresh perspective on your health, I would love to be the one to help you out. I work with patients one-on-one, both in my clinic and virtually, and if you're interested in getting that process started, you can send us an email at contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com. My staff will reach out to you and they'll help you get scheduled for a free consultation. During the consultation, it's absolutely no pressure. All I want to do is learn a little bit more about your health and figure out if it's something that I can help you with. During that time, you'll also be able to ask me any questions that you might have, and we'll decide together if things are a good fit to move forward. If you'd rather work on some things on your own, you can check out any of the other videos on my channel, or you can grab either one of my free downloads, which are listed in the description box. The first one is the food recommendations that I give to many of my patients with Hashimoto's, and the other is an electrolyte recipe for people who are following a low-carb or ketogenic way of eating. But that's all we have time for this week. Love you guys so much. Thank you for watching and supporting. If you could, please remember to like and subscribe, and if you're looking for more information and support, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook, links for which are down below. But my name is Dr. Bodle. Hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one.